Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. When Jackson moved his family into a quiet gray house on the edge of Crescent Pines, he thought they'd found peace. No HOA, no rules, just freedom. But by nightfall, curfews arrived. Then came the patrols. And by the end, Jackson wasn't just fighting for his land, he was fighting a war. I never imagined that moving to a quiet edge of a wealthy neighborhood would turn into a game of power, control, and paranoia. When my wife, Sarah, and I bought the little gray house on the edge of Crescent Pines, we saw it as a modest, peaceful place to raise our 3 kids. It wasn't part of the HOA, which was exactly why we bought it. No dues, no nosy community guidelines, and no one to tell us which shade of beige was appropriate for our mailbox. The house sat on privately zoned land, carved out long before the Crescent Pines development wrapped around it like some overly tamed botanical zoo. I was fine being the odd house out. I worked long hours as an electrical engineer, loved my grill, and enjoyed my lawn precisely because it wasn't obsessively trimmed by HOA-mandated landscapers every other Tuesday. I never picked fights, but I sure as hell finished them. The first 6 months were tolerable. We got the cold looks, the passive-aggressive comments, the mysterious complaints about our kids laughing too loud on the weekends. Then came the time a contractor showed up uninvited and said he'd been told by community management to measure our lot line. I told him where he could put his measuring tape. After that, things went quiet. Suspiciously quiet. I should have known they were planning something. It came on a Monday morning, folded in an envelope without postage but bearing the HOA's absurd gold and maroon crest. Inside was a letter addressed to the occupants at 14 Millstone Drive, our address, but with the air of something meant for a virus carrier. The letter, printed on thick paper like it was from a law firm or the Vatican, read, "Effective immediately and in accordance with Section 14B of the Crescent Pines Community Safety Guidelines, all non-certified residents are required to remain indoors after 1900 hours. This applies to all members of the household. These measures are temporary and enacted for the protection of our community's families and property values. Violations will be logged and may lead to further action." I read it once, then again, then out loud to Sarah, who just blinked at me over her cereal like she thought I was screwing with her. "They want us locked indoors after 7 p.m.? Like it's martial law." I laughed, but it had no warmth. My oldest, Mia, 12 going on 30, asked, "Wait, does that mean I can't walk Lucky after dinner anymore?" Lucky, our golden retriever, whined like he understood. I shoved the letter into my glove box and drove to work fuming. This wasn't just overreach, it was delusion. And illegal. That night, after putting the baby to bed, I made a point of walking out to my driveway at exactly 7:30, just to throw out the trash. Nothing happened. But I could feel the eyes on me from the darkened windows across the street. It wasn't until Thursday that things escalated. The baby had a fever. Not a scary one, but enough that we needed children's Tylenol and didn't have any left. At 7:15 p.m., I grabbed my keys and headed for the pharmacy 10 minutes away. Sarah stayed back, trying to calm the baby. As I reached the end of our driveway, headlights cut across my lawn. A white HOA-marked SUV rolled to a slow stop just past our mailbox. 2 men stepped out in tactical vests labeled Community Patrol. One of them had a clipboard. The other had a flashlight. Not a gun, thank God, but he stood like he wanted one. "Evening, sir," said Clipboard. "We're going to need you to return to your residence." I blinked at them. "Excuse me?" Residents who are not certified under the Crescent Pines Safety Agreement are required to be indoors by 1900 hours. It's now 1922. "I don't live under your agreement," I said calmly, which was hard to do when someone in a fake badge is quoting curfews to your face. "I'm not a member of your HOA. This is private land." Clipboard nodded like I'd just told him the sky was blue. "The guidelines apply to all adjacent parcels within influence range. We've marked this area under preliminary jurisdiction." "That's not a real sentence," I said. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to get medicine for my kid." I stepped past them. That's when Flashlight grabbed my arm. I don't remember deciding to act. It was instinct. The moment his hand closed around my jacket, I twisted hard, grabbed his wrist, and pivoted behind him, sending him sprawling into the front bumper of their SUV. Clipboard lunged, but he was slow. I caught him with a palm to the chest and let him crash backwards into the grass. Then I heard sirens. I turned just in time to see a patrol cruiser round the corner, lights already flashing. My heart dropped. This wasn't HOA bluffing. Someone had called the cops. The cruiser stopped, and out stepped two officers. The older one barked, "Hands in the air! Now!" I complied, arms up, fingers spread. Flashlight was groaning in the bushes. Clipboard sat dazed near the front tire. I tried to speak, but the officer cut me off. "We got a call about an assault on security personnel. Step away from them and turn around." I did, slowly, calmly. But I could already see the porch light of my house blinking. Sarah was standing outside with the baby in her arms, Mia behind her, holding Lucky's collar. I met her eyes as I felt the cuffs click around my wrists. They released me at 4:15 the next morning. No apology, no explanation. Just a receipt for my personal effects, a citation stapled to it, and the words, "pending review." The cell had been cold. The bench, colder. The officer who processed me hadn't even looked me in the eye. I signed where they told me, collected my keys and phone, and walked out into a quiet parking lot where Sarah was waiting, engine running, baby asleep in the car seat behind her. Neither of us said anything until we got home. She didn't ask what happened. She'd seen enough. I stood in the kitchen rubbing my wrists while she reheated coffee that neither of us really wanted. I wasn't angry. I was something worse, focused. I've never been the kind of guy who blows up. I don't scream or throw things. I fix circuits and write reports and pay taxes on time. But when someone grabs me without cause, slaps handcuffs on me in front of my children, and calls it policy, I don't let that go. Sarah slid her phone across the table. I called Joe. I looked down. Joe, or Joanna Martinez, was our attorney from a zoning fight 2 years back. Brilliant, efficient, and someone who didn't tolerate bullshit. The kind of person who could dismantle a bureaucracy with 3 emails and a coffee-stained ordinance. "She wants to meet this afternoon," Sarah added. "Said this is bigger than a misunderstanding." I nodded. It's not just them being stupid. This was calculated. Around 9 a.m., I walked the perimeter of our property with my coffee in one hand and a notepad in the other. I started making a checklist: camera placement, gate locks, backup batteries for the floodlights. It felt absurd, like I was prepping for a siege. But what else do you call it when your neighbors organize a civilian patrol to physically restrain you? At 1 p.m., Joanna arrived with her usual calm energy, heels clicking across the driveway like she owned it. She took one look at the HOA letter, one look at the citation from the sheriff's department, and asked, "Do these people even understand what the Fourth Amendment is?" We sat in the living room while the kids watched cartoons upstairs. Joanna laid out her initial plan with all the methodical rage of a woman who once sued a police department for wrongful detention and won. "First things first," she said, flipping open her tablet. "This HOA has 0 jurisdiction over your property. You're not a member. You've never signed their CC&Rs. You're on independently zoned land predating Crescent Pines by nearly 20 years. She looked up. "Which means no authority, no standing, and definitely no right to detain you or enforce curfews." I already knew most of that, but hearing it from her made it feel solid, legitimate. I wasn't crazy. They assaulted you, Jackson. That's unlawful detention. Battery. Add to that the false report to the police, and we've got enough to burn them down. Legally speaking, Sarah asked the question we both dreaded. "Will this affect custody if it goes to court?" Joanna shook her head. "They don't have a leg to stand on. But we need to get in front of it." She helped us draft a formal complaint to the sheriff's department, complete with the HOA's forged-looking curfew directive. We also filed a public records request for all emergency calls made from Crescent Pines between 6 and 9 p.m. the previous night. We wanted to know exactly what was said when they called in the cavalry. That night, I posted a scan of the HOA letter on a local community Facebook page. I included nothing else. No rant, no accusations. Just the document, raw and ridiculous, with the line highlighted: "All non-certified residents are required to remain indoors after 1,900 hours." Within hours, the post blew up. Some people were furious, others confused. A few claimed I must be leaving out context. But the majority? They were horrified. One comment stuck with me. "This sounds like something from a dystopian novel, not a Florida suburb." "Are you kidding me?" Sarah scrolled through the replies with a blank expression. Then she handed me her phone and said, "Look." The HOA had responded. Karen herself, under the Crescent Pines official Facebook profile, had posted a statement. It was written in PR speak, but drenched in that sickly sweet authoritarian tone she was famous for. "The Crescent Pines HOA regrets any confusion surrounding our new community safety guidelines. Our only goal is to maintain a peaceful, orderly environment for our residents. Recent incidents involving unsanctioned non-residents have made enhanced security protocols necessary. We ask for patience and understanding as we protect the integrity of our neighborhood. Beneath it, someone had commented, "So, martial law for moms in yoga pants?" Joanna, when I sent her a screenshot, called it a masterclass in passive-aggressive tyranny. The next day, I went to walk Lucky after dark. Mia insisted on coming with me, leash in hand. We strolled 3 blocks down the road, then back again, under the pale glow of the streetlights. No SUV, no clipboard, no flashlight. Just curtains parting here and there as people watched us from behind blinds, waiting to see if lightning would strike. It didn't, but it would soon. By Saturday, I'd memorized every inch of my deed. I sat at the dining table, staring at the original copy under a bright desk lamp like it might whisper answers if I looked long enough. The paper was crisp, notarized, and clear. The boundaries were etched out in feet and angles, verified by county records and confirmed during closing. But something wasn't adding up. Joanna had requested a copy of the Crescent Pines HOA boundary map, and when it came through via a scanned PDF, it included our parcel, our land, shaded in green and labeled Zone 4 Development Expansion. I called Joanna immediately. "They have us on their map," I said, already pacing the back deck. "In writing." "They shouldn't," she replied flatly. "Let me pull the plat filings from the county." 2 hours later, she called me back, tone colder than I'd ever heard. "Jackson, something's seriously wrong. The HOA submitted a request to update their jurisdiction map 3 months ago. Your lot was marked as pending annexation, without notice to you or the county board." I almost dropped the phone. "Is that even legal?" "It's a procedural fiction," she snapped. "They filed it as if you were in agreement. Someone forged your consent signature." The line went silent for a beat. Then she muttered, "I'm going to burn these bastards." That night, Sarah and I dug through every paper we'd received since moving in. Tucked inside a bland envelope from the Crescent Pines Welcome Committee was a flyer promoting voluntary neighborhood integration. The language was vague, but at the bottom was a signature line labeled Resident Authorization for Safety Protocol. Application. The name printed above it was mine. The signature? Not even close. Someone had scrawled a mockery of my name in crooked loops that looked like a kindergartner faking a permission slip. "I never signed this," I said, showing it to Sarah. "This is criminal." We scanned and sent everything to Joanna. She scheduled an emergency meeting with the county zoning board for Monday morning. In the meantime, I drove down to the county assessor's office and requested the original plat map. The clerk, an old man who looked like he'd been filing papers since the Nixon era, squinted at the file. He said. "That's odd." "What?" He flipped the paper toward me. "Looks like someone redrew a segment here." He pointed to a faint line, one that extended Crescent Pines' boundary about 30 feet past where it should have stopped. This line was traced over, not digitally, with a pen. Who signed the amendment? The clerk slid me a copy. The name read, William Evans, Senior Planner. I blinked. Evans had died last year. A memorial plaque still hung in the lobby. The clerk noticed my expression. "You okay?" I smiled grimly, just realizing I've been annexed by a ghost. Back at home, Sarah installed new locks on the side gate while I mounted 2 more floodlights. Our kids, usually loud and wild on weekends, were quiet. They'd picked up on the tension in the air. Mia stuck to her room. Our middle son, Leo, watched cartoons on mute. Even Lucky had stopped barking at squirrels. Around dusk, I received an anonymous text from a local number. "Check HOA board minutes from July. She promised your land to Clearwater Builders. Go look." I stared at the screen. Clearwater was the same development company that had built the newer phase of Crescent Pines. The same one rumored to be eyeing land for a community fitness center and parking lot expansion. I logged into the HOA's website. Most of it was password protected, but someone had forgotten to lock the July meeting agenda. And there it was, buried on page 5. Preliminary land reassignment discussed. President Riddell confirmed verbal commitment from adjacent parcel owner for future zoning alignment with HOA parameters. Proposal includes teardown and integration into CP North Park. Tear down. They weren't just trying to control us. They were planning to bulldoze us. I called Joanna again. "They're selling us, or trying to." She was already in motion. "We're filing an injunction tomorrow. I also want access to their internal communications." At that moment, Mia came downstairs holding a note. "Dad, this was taped to the mailbox. It was printed in the same gold and maroon as the original letter." The message was short. "You've been warned once. Continued defiance will have consequences. HOA security has full discretion after hours. For your children's sake, comply." I read it twice. My knuckles turned white around the page. "This is extortion," I said quietly. "No," Joanna replied on speaker, her voice like ice. "It's conspiracy, and we're going to prove it." By Monday morning, I had installed 3 new security cameras and slept a grand total of 48 minutes. Every creak of wood or gust of wind had me on edge, convinced it was Karen's security goons sneaking back to tape another note to my door. Or worse, Joanna's legal motion was already on a judge's desk, and the county board had called an emergency review of the Crescent Pines jurisdiction claims. But I wasn't waiting for courtroom justice anymore. I needed proof. Cold, irrefutable, HD quality proof. I reached out to a guy I knew from a freelance contract years back. Leon Vargas, ex-military IT specialist, now running a boutique cybersecurity firm out of a strip mall. He owed me a favor. I called it in. Leon showed up with a backpack full of gear and a grim look on his face. "You're telling me a homeowners association faked a boundary to steal your land?" "That's the summary," I said, "but I want the details. I want to know who's been watching us, tampering with our cameras, and maybe, just maybe, who's breaking the law in broad daylight under cover of community guidelines." He didn't laugh. He just opened his laptop, plugged into our home system, and started pulling logs. 3 hours later, we had something. "Someone tried to remotely access your network," Leon said, pointing at a time-stamped line of code. "Twice. Both attempts came from the same IP address. Guess where it's registered?" I just stared at him. "Crescent Pines, HOA Administrative Center. They tried to access your feeds the night before you were arrested." He dug deeper. "Around 7:40 p.m. On the night of my arrest, our driveway camera had picked up motion. The file had been renamed, mislabeled, and partially overwritten, but Leon recovered it. We watched the grainy footage on his laptop in silence. The 2 HOA guards approached me in the frame. I could see myself speaking calmly, then turning away to walk to my car. One of them grabbed me. The footage clearly showed them initiating the physical contact and me defending myself. Not the other way around. Then, minutes later, headlights. The police. In the corner of the frame, another shape appeared. A woman, blonde, standing half-hidden near the bushes, holding a walkie-talkie. Karen. Leon enhanced the audio. It was rough, but we could make out her voice. "He's resisting. Good. Get ready." We stared at each other. "She staged it," I said coldly. Leon nodded. She needed a reason to escalate. Joanna arrived later that afternoon to collect the footage. Her jaw tightened visibly when she heard Karen's voice. "This changes everything. We'll submit it with the injunction and press for a full criminal probe. I also want this footage in the hands of the press." But Leon wasn't done. While digging through cached email headers from a connected smart panel, one the HOA might have tried to compromise, he found fragments of outbound messages sent from within their building. Internal communications. He used a forensic tool to recover broken snippets. Most were corrupted, but one was complete. "He's stubborn, but he'll crack." The arrest rattled him. "Give it a week. Once he backs down, we move forward with demolition prep. CP Park plan is greenlit on our end." Signed, K. Riddell. I nearly broke the table with my fist. Sarah stood behind me, pale but composed. They were going to tear down our house while our kids sleep inside it. "They still are," I said, "unless we stop them." Joanna was already texting someone. "We'll file criminal complaints in parallel with the civil injunction. This isn't about property anymore. It's about conspiracy, fraud, coercion, and surveillance." That night, we didn't sleep. Mia sat on the stairs with a baseball bat. Sarah made coffee at 2 a.m. and never drank it. I double-checked every door and motion sensor. Then I did it again. Around 3, I got another text. No number, just the message. "You were warned. Stay inside. You have no idea who you're fighting." I showed it to Leon. He smiled, thin and sharp. "Then let's show them what fighting looks like." By Tuesday morning, our house was no longer just a home. It was a bunker. The yard was lit up like a stadium at night, cameras covering every blind spot, backups of backups uploaded to cloud storage. Sarah and I took shifts sleeping. Mia kept a journal in case something happened to us. This wasn't paranoia anymore. This was self-defense. Joanna filed our injunction first thing. The footage from the night of the arrest, the recovered email from Karen, and the forged zoning documents were all submitted to the court, along with a formal complaint demanding an immediate cease and desist on all Crescent Pines activity involving our land. That should have bought us some breathing room. It didn't. Around noon, a certified envelope landed in our mailbox. The return address, Riddell Law Group. Inside was a 2-page letter, cold and clinical. Karen, now acting through a law firm bearing her own name, was suing us for defamation, emotional distress, and property devaluation caused by hostile media activity. I almost laughed, but there was nothing funny about it. The last line read, "Failure to withdraw all public claims and issue a formal retraction within 72 hours will result in civil action and referral to local authorities." Sarah read it aloud, then held it with 2 fingers like it was contaminated. "She's doubling down." "She's cornered," I said. "Now she's swinging wild." But Karen wasn't done. That same afternoon, we got another visit from a man in a tailored suit and an expensive wristwatch. He didn't introduce himself, just handed me a card that said Clearwater Holdings, Regional Acquisitions, and smiled like a vulture in a showroom. "Mr. Gray," he said smoothly, "we'd like to make you an offer." I didn't say a word. He continued, "My clients are prepared to buy your property at 120% of market value, no contingencies. We close in 2 weeks. He said it like it was a gift, a favor. "I'm not selling," I replied. "You might want to reconsider," he said, unfazed. "There's an initiative underway to rezone this land for commercial use. It could get complicated." I stepped closer, close enough to smell the citrus cologne and the arrogance underneath. "Is this a threat?" He didn't blink. "It's a generous offer for now." I shut the door in his face. Joanna filed a harassment complaint within the hour and added Clearwater to the growing list of entities under legal scrutiny. Meanwhile, Leon uncovered even more damning material, financial records from HOA board minutes that hinted at large transfers to contracting consultants, all following the exact timeline of our supposed annexation. We couldn't access full details yet, but the numbers were suspiciously round, tens of thousands, approved by executive override. That night, we held a neighborhood meeting, but not the kind Karen was used to. I hosted it on my front lawn, invited every resident of Crescent Pines who'd ever rolled their eyes at a parking violation or got fined for painting their shutters the wrong shade of cream. We set up folding chairs and a portable speaker. I played the footage from my driveway on a giant monitor. Karen tried to crash it. She pulled up in her white Lexus, flanked by 2 security guards who looked more like mall cops in matching windbreakers. She marched up the sidewalk, face already flushed, voice raised. "This is illegal public assembly," she shouted. "You are not authorized to hold meetings under Crescent Pines Charter." Someone in the crowd laughed. Then someone else shouted, "He's not in your damn HOA, Karen." I stepped off the porch and met her halfway. "I have a restraining order pending. You have 48 hours before the injunction goes active. I suggest you go home." She didn't budge. "Your lies are poisoning this community." "Then let them see the truth," I said, turning back to the monitor where her voice could be heard whispering. "He's resisting. Good. Get ready." For the first time, she looked uncertain. The next morning, the sheriff's office delivered a formal notice. Karen Riddell was under investigation for fraudulent zoning activity, unlawful surveillance, and conspiracy to commit municipal fraud. Her name was now part of an active case file. Still no arrest, but it was coming. She responded the only way she knew how. She posted an open letter on every mailbox in Crescent Pines. This used to be a safe neighborhood. Now it's a war zone. One man is tearing it apart for his ego. If you want order restored, demand his removal. Don't let one angry outsider destroy what we built. Mia read it and muttered, "She sounds like a villain from a comic book." She wasn't wrong. By the end of that week, the HOA was imploding from the inside. Joanna had barely filed the paperwork to contest Karen's defamation threat when we got a tip, anonymous again, from someone claiming to be on the Crescent Pines board. The message was simple. Check the minutes from August. Look for executive vote override. She lied to all of us. Leon got us access. The board had held a closed session vote 3 months earlier, supposedly to approve budget reallocations for community improvements. On paper, it was vague. Tree trimming, sidewalk repairs, expanded lighting. But the real kicker was the last line: approved developmental interface with parcel 14M, our property, budgeted at $93,000, marked contractor agreement pending. The vote, 5-0. Except there were only 4 board members present that day. Someone had forged a 5th vote. Joanna nearly spit out her coffee. She faked her own board's approval. The news spread fast. Local reporters picked it up, and within 48 hours, one of the HOA board members, Philip Young, a retired dentist, held a press conference from his driveway. He looked shaken but resolute. "I want to state clearly that I was misled," he told the cameras. "At no point was I informed that Mr. Gray's property was being targeted for acquisition. I was told these improvements referred to traffic calming measures near the North Gate. Had I known the truth, I would have voted no. And I believe Mrs. Riddell acted without full disclosure to this board or this community." That was the crack. By Monday, 2 more board members had resigned. The HOA was short a quorum, making it legally inoperative. Karen tried to appoint emergency replacements via an email blast titled Crescent Pines Emergency Restoration Authority. It landed with a thud. People weren't buying it anymore. My inbox flooded with messages from neighbors, some apologetic, some still suspicious, most just confused and scared. One woman, Debbie from 3 houses over, brought us brownies with a note that read, "I thought you were the problem. Turns out you're the only sane one here. I'm sorry." I wasn't interested in apologies. I wanted accountability. Joanna filed a motion to freeze all HOA financial activity pending audit. The county judge granted it within hours. Their accounts were locked. Their lawyer, yes, the same one who'd threatened to sue us, suddenly stopped responding. Rumor had it he'd quietly withdrawn his counsel after seeing the footage, but Karen hadn't gone silent. She went nuclear. Tuesday morning, we woke up to find a new security guard stationed outside our driveway. Not HOA branded this time, private, armed, standing with a clipboard and aviators like this was a military checkpoint. I approached him cautiously. "Can I help you?" He didn't even look up. "Just observing for now, sir. Here on behalf of a client." "Which client?" He remained silent. I called Joanna. She called the sheriff. 10 minutes later, a deputy rolled up, spoke to the guy for a few minutes, and then escorted him off the property. Turns out Karen had hired a private security firm to monitor hostile behavior from a known community agitator, me. We filed an emergency restraining order. This time it stuck. Karen was officially barred from contacting or surveilling me or my family in any way, but she wasn't the only one we were watching. Leon kept digging. He'd gained access to public bid records for Crescent Pines projects over the last year and found something that made Joanna's face go pale. "Jackson," she said, holding up the file, "these vendor payments, they're fake." "Fake how?" "Shell companies, registered to P.O. boxes, no phone numbers, no business licenses, and guess whose name is listed as contract administrator on 4 of them?" I didn't need to ask. Karen. If this was true, and if we could prove she'd funneled HOA funds into fake vendors under her control, we weren't just dealing with zoning fraud or harassment. We were looking at embezzlement, grand theft, potential federal charges if any of it crossed state lines or involved wire fraud. Joanna contacted the state attorney's office. By Friday, the Crescent Pines HOA was officially under investigation for financial misconduct, conspiracy, and municipal zoning fraud. A temporary county administrator was appointed to oversee what was left of the association's operations. Karen's authority suspended. At a town meeting held that Saturday, under police protection, I stood before more than 50 neighbors on the high school football field and told them everything. I brought printed copies of the forged plat maps, the falsified board vote, the letter threatening my family, the financial records. I wasn't angry anymore. I was clinical, focused, surgical. They listened in stunned silence. And when I was done, someone from the back of the crowd shouted, "You should be running this place." Someone else added, "At least he's not stealing from us." I raised a hand. "I don't want to run anything. I just want my damn life back." They applauded anyway. It was surreal, standing on my porch the following Monday, sipping burnt coffee and watching a pair of uniformed sheriff's deputies post a bright orange placard on the entrance to the Crescent Pines HOA office. The words, "officially closed, pending investigation," screamed across the vinyl like a scarlet letter. A half-dozen residents stood nearby, whispering and snapping photos. A few waved at me awkwardly. I didn't wave back. Joanna called just as the deputies were pulling away. "They're moving fast," she said. The state attorney's office wants a formal deposition from you, Wednesday, and they've subpoenaed Karen's financial records from her tenure as HOA president. It's all unraveling. It was. Within 24 hours, the sheriff's department had seized HOA files, hard drives, and every payment ledger they could find. Karen, unsurprisingly, lawyered up immediately, issuing a statement through her counsel denying all unfounded accusations and warning against public lynching via social media. But it didn't matter anymore. The tide had turned. A week later, she was arrested. It wasn't dramatic. No handcuffs on her lawn or televised chase. The deputies picked her up at a boutique spa on the edge of town. She was wrapped in a robe, face half covered in green clay, according to one of the officers who later spoke off the record. They booked her on charges of fraudulent misrepresentation of zoning authority, criminal conspiracy to obtain property under false pretenses, filing false municipal documents, tampering with public infrastructure databases, embezzlement of HOA funds exceeding $50,000. That last charge came from Leon's research. Turns out 3 of the companies she funneled money through didn't exist. The payments were rerouted to a private account in a Nevada-based trust under her maiden name. Joanna smiled when she read the charges. She's cooked. The media exploded. Local news camped out in front of Crescent Pines for days. National outlets picked up the story as a bizarre mix of suburban drama, HOA madness, and financial crime. They called it the gated coup. Some anchor actually referred to me as the dad who dared. I hated it, but what I couldn't ignore was the wave of support. Messages poured in from strangers, people across the country who'd battled their own Karens, their own weaponized HOAs, their own bureaucratic nightmares. Some had lost, others had settled, but now they had a case to point to. Mine. Still, the fight wasn't over. Karen's arrest sparked a flurry of lawsuits. Multiple homeowners filed against the HOA for improper fines, harassment, and emotional distress. The interim county administrator suspended all pending HOA enforcement and froze their escrow accounts. And then, the final blow landed. At the state's request, a grand jury was convened to review the full scope of HOA corruption. I was called to testify. Sitting in that courtroom under oath, retelling the story of how my family had been harassed, threatened, detained, and nearly displaced was both exhausting and cathartic. I described the forged letters, the fake patrols, the midnight surveillance, the fraudulent rezoning. I told them about the moment one of Karen's guards put a hand on my shoulder and called it policy. I told them about watching my kids cry through the window while I was hauled away in cuffs. I told them how I'd found her standing in the bushes whispering, "Good, get ready." When I stepped down, the prosecutor looked me in the eye and said, "Thank you for not backing down." 2 weeks later, the grand jury returned a full indictment. Karen Riddell was charged with 13 felonies and 6 misdemeanors. Her bail was denied. The judge, in his preliminary remarks, called her actions a textbook example of civil tyranny hidden under the veneer of neighborhood governance. I nearly clapped in court. I didn't, but Sarah did. Meanwhile, the state moved to dissolve the HOA entirely under emergency authority. With no leadership, no funds, and pending class action suits, Crescent Pines collapsed as a legal entity. Residents were informed that all prior HOA rules, fines, and restrictions were now void until a new governing body could be formed, if they even wanted one. Most didn't. 1 month later, the county commission voted to officially rezone my property as protected residential, permanently outside the reach of any community association. It was over, at least on paper. 2 months after the indictment, our home finally felt like home again. No more patrols, no more letters, no more silent watchers behind curtain slits. Just the sound of wind in the trees, kids laughing in the yard, and the occasional barking of Lucky when the mail truck rolled up. Normalcy had returned, and yet something fundamental had shifted. I'd gone from the outsider to the man who blew up the HOA. People smiled when they saw me now. Neighbors waved. Debbie from down the street brought banana bread once a week, like clockwork, as if we were all pretending that the last year hadn't happened. But I remembered everything. Karen's trial was scheduled for early spring. She remained in custody, denied bail due to the scale of her fraud and the active risk of document tampering. Her attorney floated the idea of a plea deal, but the DA wasn't biting. Too much damage, too much arrogance, too much on the record. Joanna kept me in the loop. The financial audit had grown into a statewide review of HOA corruption. Turns out Karen wasn't unique, just one of the few bold or stupid enough to get caught with her manicure still wet on the forged contracts. Clearwater Holdings, the contractor she colluded with, was also under investigation. Their entire local division shut down within weeks. Their lawyer tried to contact me. I didn't answer. As for the HOA's physical assets, gone. The Crescent Pines office was bulldozed. The land was absorbed by the county and earmarked for public use. Sarah joked we should request they turn it into a dog park. I joked we should put up a bronze statue of Leon with a USB stick in his hand. We never got our house torn down, but we did build something. It started small. A GoFundMe someone else created to support the guy who took down the HOA. The money came in fast and awkward. I shut it down once it passed $5,000 and redirected the funds to start a legal resource fund. Joanna joined as a consultant. Leon helped build the infrastructure. We called it Beyond the Gate, a nonprofit offering legal advice, technical tools, and public awareness for homeowners facing HOA overreach. Our first success story was a young couple from Arizona who were fined $300 a day for having a wheelchair ramp without aesthetic conformity. Our attorney helped them wipe the fines and got the HOA president sanctioned. The second case, a veteran in North Carolina who had his American flag forcibly removed. We had it back up within a week, with interest. By winter, we had volunteers in 17 states. And our property? I fenced it. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. 8-foot cedar slats with reinforced posts and a motion camera at every corner. Not for paranoia, but as a monument. I mounted a brushed steel plaque on the inside of the gate, right where I could see it every time I came home. It read, "This land is free. No curfew, no permission. If you're looking for rules, turn around." People started taking pictures with it. The final court ruling came down in late January. Karen was sentenced to 13 years in state prison without the possibility of early release. Her former security team took plea deals, 6 years apiece, and lifetime bans from working in private enforcement. The county declared Crescent Pines unincorporated. No one rushed to bring it back. Mia wrote an essay for school titled "The Night They Tried to Lock Up My Dad." Her teacher sent us a copy. I read it in one go, then read it again. She didn't write about fear. She wrote about standing in the front yard while I was arrested and thinking, they picked the wrong family. She was right. I don't know what Karen thinks about all this, sitting in her cell, far from her scented candles and iron grip on HOA meeting minutes. Maybe she's plotting a new set of bylaws. Maybe she's just counting tiles. Doesn't matter. She doesn't get to write the rules anymore. We do.